So then how were you first approached with respect to this project, the Krishnamurti Center?
Somebody who was related to this center here, and therefore Krishnaji, approached me because they said that Krishnaji had, or the group here had decided there ought to be a study center separate from the school. Yeah.
Okay, so then where did the big idea come from? How did it come together for you?
Basically, it was that we are the world and the world is us. Or I am the world and the world is me. And whatever damage you do to the world is damage to yourself, sort of thing, which has always been very, very strong in my awareness. And I thought the best thing to do was to design a building as if it was the collective we. It's one person, this building, one person. We're actually at the moment sitting in the area between the chest and the hands on the lap. And the two extensions are the knees, somebody sitting in something like a lotus position. And I decided to sit this person, this what is now called sometimes an anthropos, to sit in the corner of the field where Krishnaji used to have a tent and give his talks. Well, the whole point is, where it's sitting on the ground is the person, and these two are in a lotus position. There would be the two knees coming out. This would be the hands, which either here or here. The spine, the physical person would be very much bigger than this. It would be right up here, and the axis down the spinal tube would locate in here, which is the quiet room. The quiet room represents the most inward aspect of the building, and I call the glass room in the front the outer aspect. It's like perceiving outwards and perceiving inwards across the axis. We're in the middle of the axis, which goes from the diagonally through. Then these are two more to do with the bulk of the body, and they have rooms where the staff live now.
Above and below.
Yes, and below that are the kitchen on this side and the library on this side. This is the library. The main entrance into the building is here. Then this is the sitting room, and that's the dining room. And that extension there, although it's going downhill a little bit, which we had to fit into the site, and this one, these are the two thighs. This is the most important scientific instrument that humanity ever invented. You press it in, and then you quite simply rotate it, and you've already made an image of the all. If you can get people to be considerate about it, then they're quite likely to decide to sit down quietly and think a little bit about what the all might be. Or, if one doesn't like the word think even, become aware that there is such thing as an all. Not think about it so much, but become aware and see whether or not you can actually feel this whole field, feel all the trees around you, feel the whole sky over you and everything else like that, and suddenly be the all. Not think about it, but be it. And if you can reach that state, then I think it's what Krishnamurti might have said, you've reached a very good state of meditation. That's the goal of meditation. Anyway, we continue doing what I've been doing. This is very fundamental sacred geometry, by the way.
And there's the flower.
And there's a lovely flower. Petals. They've got big petals, or they've got little petals, or they've got very big petals. Now, how does this relate to the building? Well, one very good way of relating to the building is to emphasize those 2 points and these 2 points. And then to connect them up. That is one of these windows in here. I can shade it in for you. That window there is a piece of glass which is exactly proportioned like that. The idea being, as we were talking about it earlier this morning, that you see through your eyes, you see through a window. But in seeing through a window, what's happening is your mind is being given the filter of this shape. You're being given a universal reminder that you're looking through, you're seeing a landscape which hasn't got any very obvious order in it. You look at a bunch of grass, it's all over the place. You look at the trees, they're beautiful, but how could you do, what would you do? How could you count the leaves? But if you're looking through a rectangle, which is that shape, that rectangle is a reminder of the inner, most fundamental, one of the most fundamental shapes that your mind uses to recognize pattern in the natural world. Hence, as you said yourself, hence the flower, etc., etc.
And that rectangle is not only in single pane of glass, but that's repeated in the doors and the larger glazed areas as well.
That's right, indeed so, indeed so. We have these drawings here, that's still showing that connection without the chimney stack in, and then how to divide these up into proportional rectangles. The whole door is a proportional rectangle and each little windows. And a rather important aspect of how I work, I always put a human being, or two human beings preferably, a male and a female, into a drawing so that I can get a sense of what size I'm dealing with. And frankly, this is one thing I found lamentably lacking in architectural offices these days, is get them to actually put a human being in when they're working.
Think about people.
Yeah, people, what are they, you know? We're designing technology. Well, what's particularly important now is we're looking at a drawing here which was done, and we've got the date of the drawing in 1986, I think it was. But this, what you're seeing here, was a deliberate attempt by me to unify what was a dualistic state. If you look at the chimney, as it comes out of the roof, you'll see 5 rows of bricks, 5 layers of bricks. Then you have a big division. Then above that big division, you'll find 8 lines of bricks. Then a slightly lesser division. Then above that, 13 lines of bricks. And so,
that's the
that's
sequence.
your Fibonacci series, yes. In other words, 5 plus 8 make the 13.
Right.
The rest of it you have to find inside the building, I think.
Okay. So Keith, this is clear. This is the approach to the building. Is this how you expected it to be in terms of its rather hidden nature?
Well, the hidden nature was actually part of the idea. It's the whole idea being that a building should be integral, belong in nature, belong with its surroundings.
Yes, and it's very unassuming in a way, and people are always taken by surprise as they go through the door, I think, and it opens out to you. So
the library is here, and the outside entrance to the quiet space is there, so that people can enter the quiet space without having to disturb anybody in the library, which is quite important. This building is nearly totally handmade, as I could possibly achieve. And that is something which is unbelievably fundamental in our day and age. There are some, but very few, industrialized elements in this building. Very, very few. But every tile you look at, every brick that you look at, were placed and thrown into position by a human person. But you were asking earlier about the bricks. The bricks are actually come from a place in Gloucestershire where we found they were cooking bricks in a shape which was built in 1300.
A kiln.
A kiln, absolutely extraordinary, a hemispherical kiln. And everything had been done by watching the flames and by eye. And they were just beginning to bring in technology to measure the temperatures and so forth. But
Also, what's nice here is you can find a brick or two which have got what they call a smile in them.
Yes.
And this one's
The creases at the edge of the brick. Yes.
what it amounts to is a man was given a piece of clay as big as his hands like this. He'd take it above his head and throw it into a box, and the box would be the shape of the brick.
Push that.
And what was fascinating, even in that factory, there were young people watching the brick throwers, begging to have a chance to throw bricks themselves. It was a completely different attitude and atmosphere to anything industrial. But each individual brick has a lovely smile on this one too.
Yes.
Each brick has a different grain and a different quality, and that's what makes it so importantly different from anything to do with industrialization, which all bricks are the same, they're all the same color and so forth. You'll see a variation in color in here too, which is to me extremely valuable.
And the red bricks, were they from the same
The red bricks, I'm not sure if they came from exactly the same place. Now I think we got the red bricks from a different place, but the same principle was involved.
Yes.
And
Also handmade.
yes, and I mean I designed this three coming out, then 3 staying in, 3 coming out, 3 staying in. I designed that, and we had a little bit of a discussion about whether I wanted the red bricks to be slightly forward from these, but that apparently was something which was rather costly and would be costly on time and so forth with the builders. So we agreed in the end, and this groove in here is made with a human thumb or hand or finger.
Very good.
Again,
Very good. Well, let's go in.
yeah. I just wanted to make the point that as you come into the building, when you get to a point like this, you are very aware of the breadth of the possible vision you've got, and also where you're going to go. You can see exactly where you're going to go. But as soon as you get here, you can also suddenly become aware there's a rose window there. And the rose window tells you, by looking through it, how the roof is held up. So as soon as even you get as far as the first 2 paces into the building, you're being given a lot of knowledge and information about how it's built. Okay, let's go through.
This remarkable space, Keith, and I mean one gets that sense of space and light as soon as you enter into it, and that's intentional.
One of the thrusts of modern architecture have been to bring ceilings down.
Yes.
Because nobody can justify the space.
Yes, and the expense.
Yes, and usually the ceiling is somewhere just above what you can raise your hand to.
Right.
So people come here and they say, well, where did you get all the expense to build all this space? Well, the answer is you're trying to actually draw people up into the higher. And the looking upwards is really rather more fruitful than looking downwards. And as far as I'm concerned, Krishnaji was about looking upwards. So it's thinking space, and based on the structure of a barn, and each of the columns in the room are reminders that they were trees, and in a sense they still are trees, but they have a degree of classicism about them. Each of the capitals is based on, curious enough, a tenfold division, which relates it to the golden mean. Actually, before we get to the fireplace, once we stand here, and you look at the pattern above the fireplace in the plaster there, very subtle little pattern, it is actually, from this central position, it is actually circular.
Oh.
Although you have to have quite a good eye to be sure that
you mean the inside of the pattern is circular.
Yes, the inside of that.
Yes.
That pattern.
Oh, I see. Even though it's laying on a angled surface.
In fact, it's quite elliptical.
Yes.
It's quite distorted as a circle when it came to making it. But I decided to make it work as a circle
from here,
from the middle of the room.
Isn't that interesting? Yes.
Yeah, and it's a clock, but it's a clock which doesn't pass time.
So there's nothing more timely than the timeless.
Nothing more timely than timeless. Not only that, the end of time.
Yes.
Time is frozen. Time is actually it's eternal time.
The other thing that strikes you about this room when you're in here is the light, and of course the views outside of the outside of the space that you get and that's clearly very important for you in the design of the building.
Indeed, yes. Well, I tried to make the building as transparent as possible, transparent to nature and transparent to the people in it. There's one place we'll go to in a minute where you can actually see every feature of the building. You can stand by one of the windows in the dining room there. You can see through everything. From here, one can see what's in the courtyard and man's effort to cooperate with nature to make a garden. Yes. And also there's a mandala aspect to the courtyard. And looking this way is another extension of the natural world, the trees and the grass and so forth. So whichever way you look, they're reminders of our responsibility to nature. That's really the idea. Very deliberately, we kept the dining room directly in connection with, spatially, with the so-called sitting room. This is a place people will come after they've eaten usually and sit and read and write either Krishnamurti's books or about the building or whatever. Or, with good luck, they'll find some very good books by me. The point being that whatever community is here, whether they're eating or whether they're here, the awareness of how many people are is there. Yes. Also another quite interesting transition which we'll find as we walk through, and that is that we have an octagonal rose window here. So as soon as we get into here, we don't have an octagonal rose window, we have an enneagrammic, a ninefold window.
Enneagrammic?
Yes.
A ninefold window.
A ninefold window, yes. And that ninefold window is actually an indication of where the curvature of the beams come from. But of course it's not at all easy to appreciate that. Yes. But it's all highly esoteric. Yes. But if you take the base of that nine, which is parallel to the floor, and those 2 points on that baseline are the 2 points which you would put your compass to strike the curvature of the arch.
Of this arch here?
Yes, of these arches. And that is a very, very important curve. It took me a long time to find it, and it only comes up every 1,000 years.
How did you manage to find it?
Well, because I found it in the Temple of Heaven in Beijing, and I found it on the what's called the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, and I found it on the west opening of Chartres Cathedral. There's 3 completely different religions and different philosophies, but there's a 1,000-year gap between these events usually, and that struck me as being something very important. And as we were moving into the 20th century, so-called, that it would be very good to reuse this particular curvature. Unfortunately, one has to be very careful. One has no idea, at the moment we don't have any sort of scientific idea, how visual forms affect the consciousness of a person. But as far as I'm concerned, it has always been known that that does happen, and it does affect people. And if which has been very nice, a lot of people here often come up to me and thank me for the building and so forth. And if they do, it's only a confirmation that one has probably struck on the kind of geometry which has said something, but they're not words one can talk about. They're geometry.
Keith, from this spot also one sees how transparent the building is.
Hopefully, yes.
And you can see right through to
the stacks through the top window, and I can see the ground floor, and I can see the first floor. Yeah, it is about transparency, and of course transparency is an important psychological and social virtue. It's not just to do with being able to see through everything, it is all part of the same thing.
Now, what is the significance of this point, this spot?
Yes. Well, the significance of this spot is that if you choose to be visually thoughtful, you can see right through the library, right out to the orchard on the outside. You can see right through both at the corner of the building. Yes, and you can see the upper decks there if needs be. You can see right through to the conservatory, and you can see all the accommodation right down to that wing there. what's rather beautiful about the metalwork is that there are little flowers on the metalwork. Now that wasn't anything to do with me. That was the metalworker himself. He decided he was going to put some flowers on, and I thought it was a lovely idea. Very happy. What's useful in my mind to remember is that the window itself, the glazing bars of the window, are based on a unique thing that doesn't happen anywhere else in the building, and that is the shape of the angles. We'll have to go a little bit closer. Three sides of a seven-pointed or a seven-sided figure or a heptagon. So the angles which make up that central window at the top are based on the sevenness, which again is an echo of the musical analogy between 7 and 8, the notes of a diatonic scale. So we have three windows, three little glazed parts coming off that at the top, and then coming down 1, 2, 3, 4 down on each side. There are 8 of those little windows, and then there are 3 number of notes necessary to make a chord, 3 windows centrally.
And then the 8 is reflected internally by the shape of the quiet space inside, the octagon, the importance of the octagon.
Exactly, yes. And the octagon is a completed octave, it's a completed universe in a sense, and it's a completed person, and it relates to the heart. Interestingly enough, very interestingly, the metal worker decided to make 7-petaled flowers. And nobody's explained to me why he decided to make 7-petaled flowers, but there they are. Anyway, what's very nice about this view of the building is that the integration with the natural world is brilliant. I mean, one has to compliment the gardeners here and the people who planned the shrubbery, because it is lovely. And the windows we see behind the shrubs here are the archives and all the administrative work which is done to do with Krishnaji's life and his work. And a little bit further down is the kitchen, the outside windows of the kitchen.
It's striking how much the building feels as though it belongs in the landscape, isn't it? And is a part of the landscape.
Very much
and
so.
The colours and the textures.
Indeed, and the green against the grey again. But this is a lot to do with how well planted it has been, which is wonderful. These obviously proportioned the same 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. 3 4s are 12. So we have a repetition of 12ness. And then what I thought it might be a nice thing to do, I'm not sure whether actually going inside would be
easier
to do.
Okay, that's good.
Every human body is the same as every other human body in the sense of being a human body, but proportioning them is something which is very much out of fashion at the moment, sadly, and very rarely do you find architects in architectural offices doing drawings of the human body from which to make sure the rooms and windows and everything else relate, which is very sad from my point of view. So I've made, in this building particularly, I made a point of making sure that whatever you look through is a reminder that you're looking through, for the want of a better word, eternal geometric truths. You're looking through an eternal, timeless truth to look at time, which is how nature works. Nature works in time. And this, to me, seemed to be very much related to what Krishnaji was talking about when he's talking about knowledge and time.
This building appears in Prince Charles's book about British architecture. Was it something that you discussed with him, or how did he come to know about it?
Do you know, again, I'm not quite sure. I think it's pretty likely that I discussed it with him, and it's pretty likely that I probably sent him drawings of what we were doing. But no, I did have discussions with him, because he, of course, is basically a traditionalist from the point of view of many things, not least architecture, often to the horrors of many people. But he was a good listener when it came to talking about harmony and proportion. Eventually brought out his own book on harmony. And that's really where sacred geometry fits in to the architecture. Whatever you do on the outside, whatever the outside appearance may be, the inner thing that's holding it up is the timelessness of the geometry and the harmony